You'll probably hear this a lot, but in the world we're living today, it is very refreshing to see a Superman who is driven by compassion rather than, mindlessly, violently punching a thing until it goes away. No, this is a real Superman. So, hold on to your butts.
Hey buddy, eyes up here.
Superman is, of course, the new DC film from writer-director James Gunn, who's also now at the helm of the DC universe at Warner Brothers. In this story, we find Supes right in the middle of a battle with true evil. Online disinformation by Lex Luthor in a scheme to ruin Superman's reputation. So on this roller coaster of global events, we obviously see a lot of Superman's strengths, but also his vulnerability and his weaknesses, which is really interesting because he's a man trying to do good in a world that sees that kindness as a weakness. This is a James Gunn movie in every way. It has a clever script, it's surprising, it's funny, exciting, and more importantly, it has tons of charm and heart. Like a Superman movie is supposed to be. It opens in the middle of Superman's conflict with Lex Luthor, who is played by Nicholas Hoult. Our hero doesn't need any explanation at this point, everyone knows who Superman is. James Gunn mercifully spared us his origin story. There's a few mentions of it, but just like in Spider-Man Homecoming, the movie assumes you're not a complete idiot that has to have everything explained to you. And because of that freedom, the pacing is quick, the story is constantly moving, and everything in the movie is there to drive the plot forward. So the runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes really flies by. There's a lot happening in this movie, so here's a tip. Don't go to the bathroom. Just go before the movie starts. That way you don't have to find your seat in the dark, you don't have to ask anyone any questions. It's a whole thing, just go beforehand. And because the film skipped the origin story, and this being a James Gunn movie, we also have time to develop interesting characters. In the foreground there's of course Lex Luthor, Lois Lane, and Superman. But the side characters are given enough to do as well. We have Jimmy Olsen, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, not to be confused with Hawk-Tuah-Girl.
Hawk-Tuah and spit on that thing, you get me?
We also have Metamorpho, and of course the wonderful Krypto the Superdog, who doesn't really listen to Superman, but that's a fun little spoiler that I'm not gonna get into. Nicholas Hoult is an outstanding Lex Luthor. He is so amazingly unlikable in this movie that his last name could have easily been Musk. And this is the part where the script really shines, because Superman is a difficult character to write for. I mean, the man is almost invincible. But this Luthor is an evil genius in every sense of the word. He's been studying Superman's every move, and he has this sick obsession with him that is almost as big as his xenophobic hate for him, which really comes across many times in the movie. Superman is played by David Corenswet, and he does an outstanding job. I've only seen him in the movie Pearl, which I recommend watching, but Corenswet is a very charismatic Superman, and I love the dynamic between Lois Lane and Clark Kent. Lois is played by Rachel Brosnahan, and she's almost like his exact opposite. She's very cynical, questions everything, and doesn't necessarily believe everything that Clark does. That's something that becomes very clear when Clark agrees to an interview.
You illegally entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed, Superman.
But she is equally strong as a person as Superman is powerful as a meta-human. However, to me, the real heart of the story lies with the Kents, Clark's parents, who, by the way, actually sound like they're from Kansas. These are just the sweetest people. There's a conversation between Clark and his dad at one point in the movie that was just aces. Like I said earlier, the story really moves along quickly, and it doesn't jump from action scene to action scene with some dialogue in between. It is really well written, and it felt like an old school adventure with genuinely exciting sequences spread out throughout the entire film. Apart from that, this movie has a kick-ass soundtrack because, again, this is very much a James Gunn movie. And the score by John Murphy, which is inspired by the original score by John Williams, gave me goosebumps every single time it swelled up. This movie reminded me of the joy and excitement I felt when I was a kid in the 80s watching the Donner Superman films. James Gunn somehow managed to add to that feeling. It is the first time in a long while that I'm actually looking forward to seeing another movie in this new DC universe. So that's all I'm gonna say without spoiling anything, so go watch Superman in IMAX. This was one of the big titles I wanted to see this year, and I highly recommend it. So on a more serious note, this movie reminded me of my uncle. Growing up, I always saw him as Superman. And as I got older, I realized he was just a drunk dressed up as Superman. Yeah, our holidays were weird.